Welcome back. Breaking news. Fox News can now project that Georgia's special election for the remainder of the retired Senator Johnny Isakson's term will head to a January 5th runoff. Republican incumbent Senator Kelly Loeffler will go against Democrat Raphael Warnock. Some other Senate races we've been watching this morning: Majority Leader Mitch McConnell winning his race. South Carolina's Lindsey Graham also keeping his seat in what was the most expensive Senate race. Democrats picked up one seat with former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper defeating Senator Cory Gardner, and Democrat Mark Kelly defeated GOP Senator Martha McSally in Arizona. Dagan, lots of moving parts in the Senate, but I guess the market's rallying today because it does appear the Republicans stay maintaining control of the Senate, putting that block up against the potential of a Joe Biden presidency trying to move his tax increases through.
Right. Certainly the path for the Democrats to take over the Senate or gain a majority there has narrowed dramatically. There's still a number of Senate races that need to be called, particularly Georgia and North Carolina. But with John James ahead in Michigan, the Republicans could potentially flip that Senate seat. You look at Susan Collins. She is ahead, although that race has not been called in Maine. Right now, all we have is a +1 that the Democrats have added, a net 1 Senate seat, with Mark Kelly winning in Arizona and John Hickenlooper winning in Colorado. I mentioned Tommy Tuberville down in Alabama. Again, the Republicans flipping that seat. So the dreams of the Democrats getting rid of the filibuster and stacking and packing the Supreme Court and potentially adding states to the union and adding senators to that governing body, that has been dashed as the way it looks right now. And I wonder, there's a lot to discuss about why people voted the way that they did, but Lee Carter had been talking about for some time the undecided voters needing answers to a few really clear questions from Joe Biden. Is he going to shut the economy down again? That was a great concern to parents. And does he believe in packing the court? And he kind of he punted on that question, said, oh, I'm going to set up a commission. And maybe that didn't affect how people voted for the presidency, but maybe it did affect how they voted locally for their Senate candidates.
Yeah, it's a good point. Mark Penn, how do you see it?
Well, look, I don't think these voters want to give a blank check to anyone. I think this is a divided country that favors checks and balances. I think that Dagan is quite right that it looks like the Senate will hold in Republicans' hands. I'm really, frankly, stunned by the small movement in the House. I think that's going to raise serious questions about Nancy Pelosi, why she didn't put the stimulus through. Trump always said, hey, you're doing it for the election, but it hurts you more than it hurts me. And it looks like Trump may well have been right about that, because they were expecting 15 to 20 seats. And right now, there are more Republican seats, even though there's a projection that they'll come out with a couple more.
Can I add one thing, Maria? I'm fascinated by just this fabulous country in which we live. But if you look at just some of these individual House races, Robert Good in my home state kept the 5th district, which runs from Northern Virginia down to deep, deep red Southern Virginia. He kept that in Republican hands. He fended off a challenge from Cameron Webb. And being down in the South, summer taking care of my father, like Cameron Webb was running in some really great ads compared to Bob Good. Bob Good's ads were, quite frankly, awful, and they were blanketing the airwaves. But he managed. That race has already been called, at least by the AP. So Bob Good keeps that seat in Republican hands. But I don't know, some people have not called this race, but it looks like that Staten Island here in New York City and the district that includes the part of southern Brooklyn switches to Republican. Nicole Maliotakis beats Max Rose potentially. So we've got a Republican in New York City as a congresswoman.
That's great. I'm so glad you brought that up. You're right. And remember, President Trump was saying, I'm going to try to go big in New York. I'm going to try to gain support. We were hearing of some whispers of some support in New York. It's a great point about Nicole Malliotakis. Let me ask you real quick, Mark Penn, to respond to what you heard from Jim McLaughlin earlier. He said he was very uncomfortable with what happened in Philadelphia last night, in Pennsylvania, where they just stopped. Now he says that, you know, in Pennsylvania, President Trump is up 600,000 votes, and yet they're saying they're not going to resume counting, and it's too close to call. They're going to resume until Friday. He's up 200,000 in Michigan. Again, too close to call. Your reaction to all of this?
Well, look, if I were in that campaign, I'd be troubled. You're always troubled, as I said before, when they stop the count, see where everybody else is, figure out how many votes they need to find in areas with lots of Democratic or, if it were reversed, Republican votes. It's really troubling, and I think that there's going to be a major fight here over what standards are used to count these mail-in votes, postmarks, signatures, timing. All this is up so that it's not one person, one vote if the standards differ from state to state. And I think that's what Trump is alluding to when he says he's going to go right to the Supreme Court.
I see.